West Virginia's Joe Manchin has an independent mind, which voters in his deeply red state seem to appreciate. And he held out for key changes to the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act. We're going to ask this political linchpin whether the art of compromise can make a comeback in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so that is Fortune's CEO Initiative Conference, and they love Joe Manchin. In particular, they love his independent mind. And if you've been paying attention to politics for a little bit, you probably know exactly what that means when a rich person says it. They don't like independence, they like someone who is on their leash right now. And Joe Manchin very much is. We're gonna talk about a number of different topics here, but right there, they were talking about compromise and social spending. Well, let's jump to a little bit more on that.
Looking ahead, what are the similar opportunities for bipartisan action?
You're going to get your financial house in order. We cannot live with this crippling debt. If they don't get their house in order, if we don't look at the trust funds that are going bankrupt, whether it be Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, Highway, all the ones, Alan, are in tremendous problems right now. If we can't come to grips of how we face the financial challenges this country has, then we're all going to be paying a price that we can't afford.
Okay, so there is Joe Manchin making the sort of vague argument that he always makes to stop the federal government from doing basically anything. There's something economic that's out of control, and at some point it's gonna be bad, and so we can't do anything. We won't be able to afford these. Okay, so what if we were to raise taxes a little bit, raise a little bit of money, make these programs more sustainable? No, we can't do that. In fact, if you want to jump ahead, July of this year, he said that in addition to not supporting climate spending because he doesn't care if your kids and your grandkids are living in some sort of Mad Max apocalypse, he also didn't support tax hikes on the wealthy to fund any of these programs, infrastructure, let alone these what he would call entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare that flash to a month or two from now. He's probably going to be working with Republicans on to help them get them cut in the way that they want.
So Joe Manchin has been helping the Republican Party the entire Biden administration, right? So they can't, the Republicans, remember, were out of power. The Democrats, of course, have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. So if they wanted, they could actually pass anything they want. But Joe Manchin is not a Democrat, he's a Republican. And he's pretending to be a Democrat, that way you could do more damage. So what do you mean do more damage, right? Well, first of all, you block 85% of Joe Biden's agenda, which he did single-handedly. Like, don't get me wrong, Kristen Sinema helped, and if they weren't around, other corporate Democrats would step up. And this is all a shell game, right? But he was happy to do it, right? So he kills most of Biden's agenda. Biden is also a Republican, so he doesn't really care. After Manchin killed his agenda, he's at a news conference, he sees Joe Manchin, he goes, "Hey, Joe, how you doing?" Jojo, somebody kills 85% of my agenda. I ain't calling him Jojo, I'm calling him something else. Okay, so anyway, so this is how this game is played. So I'm bringing that up in this context, why? Because the Republicans are getting killed on Social Security. Finally, Democrats woke up in the last couple of weeks before the election. They're talking about how the Republicans have promised to cut Social Security and Medicare. That's definitely a winning strategy. And then the Republicans call Manchin, they're like, "Hey, we need your help. So be a good boy and go out there and say, I, as a Democrat, think we should cut Social Security and Medicare."
Great.
So he goes and he talks to a bunch of CEOs and he goes, "Remember, I am your loyal servant." More on that in a second, okay? "And so I am here to serve you and my Republican colleagues. So I will destroy the Democratic messaging right before the election and say it's me as a Democrat that wants to cut Social Security and Medicare." And if the Republicans win and they want to do that, is he going to help them? Of course he is. He's a servant of the donors. And then what does the media do? No, moderate. Moderate's a positive phrase.
Independent thinker.
Independent thinker. No, he's corrupt. He takes millions of dollars from these guys. And then what a liar. Oh, the deficit. It's funny, Joe Manchin and the other corporate Democrats, they can never find the deficit or the debt when Trump is in charge or Bush is in charge. When any Republican's in charge, you never hear them talking about the debt or the deficit. She just mum's the word, nothing. Oh my God, Trump. Manchin, right? Now Biden's in charge and the Democrats are like, "Oh God damn it, deficit, trying to help the American people. Cut their goddamn Social Security. Okay, we got the debt and the deficit." All right, great, Joe, you care a lot about that. So let's raise taxes on the wealthy because that will actually reduce deficit. Awkward. Yeah, no way, no. Because look, to be fair, the poor people of West Virginia need to have their Social Security and Medicare cut. But my donors, I mean, they can't risk losing $10. They only have 32 billion. So we can't, no. You have to leave the billionaires alone. They're the most precious people on earth. I work for them. You're their dog, Joe Manchin. You're their freaking dog. They walk you on a goddamn leash, as you're about to see in a second. More of it. Go ahead, Mark.
I mean, you're certainly right. This deficit hawk stuff is just used as it's subterfuge for, hobbling legislation. Cenk is so right about that. And you never hear about cut, if you're so concerned with budget, the defense budget. Instead, we deal with a bloated defense budget that is voted by both parties, and they're getting excesses in excess of what they want. I mean, in other words, the appropriations request is one thing, then we give them 20% more. Both parties do that, but you don't hear that defense budget mentioned in any of this conversation about trying to bring debt under control. And I think the notion of smearing the message or muddying the message is a really good one. I mean, it takes away the us versus them advantage that the Democrats would otherwise have. I think that's a really important message today.
Yeah. Well, we don't have much time, but let's get to a little bit more from Joe Manchin. First, this clip.
As John Kennedy said, that's not what your country can do for you, what you can do for it. And right now we've got people asking, how much more can my country do for me? That's not how you remain the superpower of the world.
Well, how about this? How about we ask the billionaires, what can you do for us? I feel like you could give a little bit more in taxes, still be fabulously wealthy. You could still buy as many islands as you could ever hope to see in the rest of your life. But maybe then we wouldn't all suffer. But no, you're the one who's supposed to suffer. Regular people are supposed to suffer and give and sacrifice, not the wealthy. I wanted to read one more quote from him because he also talked about campaign contributions to these CEOs. And he said, he was contrasting the way that these CEOs invest in their business and the way that the corporations invest in politicians. And he said, they've done that by taking risks, getting a return, expecting returns on investment. The investments you've made in politics from the Democrat side and the Republican side by asking nothing in return is a foolish investment because you would never do that in your business world or your private life. So he believes that these corporations are not expecting anything. They're also apparently not getting anything from these contributions, but they should. He thinks they're being foolish because they're not openly bribing politicians enough. They're just giving corporate money out of the goodness of their heart and not expecting any return. That's what professional politician and full-grown adult, I checked, Joe Manchin had to say to this group of CEOs.
He literally is saying that if you're a 73-year-old retired coal miner in West Virginia, you need to do more for your country. But if you're a billionaire that funds this campaign, you don't need to do anything more for the country. You're good. It's disgusting. But I want to play one more Manchin clip. Watch what he says here.
Bipartisan action used to happen on a fairly regular basis. Yeah. Why has it gotten so hard and so much worse?
The rules of how you participate in the Senate or in politics. Now you can't go out to dinner with a lobbyist. They looked at that as a bad thing, that they were peddling influence. The lobbyists basically would go out and have different functions. Democrats and Republicans would come together. Those things have changed because there's no camaraderie right now.
What can the business community do to better engage with this somewhat dysfunctional political system you've been describing?
Why don't you do this? Tell a politician when they come to you. Say, listen, I'm sorry, I don't give checks. I don't give a donation or a contribution to any politician, but I'm willing to make an investment. What should I expect from you? What are you going to do? What have you done in your political life? And what will you do if this is your first time? Tell me so I can make a decision on whether I want to invest in you because I can expect something in return.
Wow, he said it out
He
loud.
just said it.
That's
he just said it.
That's all that is.
He just said, invest in a politician and then demand to know what he can do for you. That's
in return.
In return, that's quid pro quo. That's the definition of corruption. He just said it on tape. Now, what's going to be amazing, guys, and that's why we do predictions on this show, so you can understand how politics works. You will not see that on a single cable news station. You will not see the New York Times write about it. You will not see Washington Post write about it. That is an amazing admission of corruption. He's talking to CEOs. There's a giant CEO label right next to him. And he says, you should bribe us, and then you should demand that we work for you and that you get a return on investment from us corrupt politicians.
Yeah.
And then all of mainstream media will say, no, that's not news. No, all these politicians are dirty, corrupt, terrible, immoral people, okay? So when the mainstream media lies to you and say they're honest, and Joe Manchin's a moderate from West Virginia, that's why he has to serve his voters. His voters want him to work for CEOs in New York. Do they? Do they? You goddamn liars. Why are you lying on behalf of Joe Manchin? So this is corruption defined. Republicans and corporate Democrats like Joe Manchin working together with CEOs to screw the rest of us.
Yeah.
This is not democracy. This is flat out bribery and corruption. And that's America. They've turned America into the most corrupt nation on earth. It's disgusting.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.